You're listening to the Platform Launchers podcast. I'm John Stange, and it's great to have you with us as always again this week. And this week is a special week for us in Platform Launchers because we have a guest expert. We do this once a month. We bring on a guest expert to talk about some element or some aspect of platform development. And I'm really, really grateful for our guest this week because she's someone that over the past year or two, I've started to become really good friends with, and somebody that I have a lot of respect for in platform development and audience creation and even just serving an audience. She does a fantastic job. Our guest is Tamara Jackson, and I'll give you a little hint of where you can find her, but I'm going to have her introduce herself in just a moment. But she's the leader of the Christian Authors Network. She also is at 265point.com. And she has so much value that she brings to speakers and authors and podcasters and other leaders. And so it's a huge privilege for us at Platform Launchers to welcome her as a guest this week. Welcome, Tam. How are you?
Wow, I am honored. Thank you. Do I need to slip you the money now to thank you for that great introduction?
Just Venmo me. It's fine. Just send it via Venmo, whatever you need.
Oh, wait,
But I mean everything I just said.
Maybe I should buy you a coffee. Maybe that's
buy me a coffee. That's fine. That speaks our platform language. But it's awesome to have you. I'm so glad to have you here with us this week.
It's great to be here. And this topic is one that I am very passionate about. So it's timely. And I'm looking forward to the discussion.
I am as well. And one of the things that we did just before we began this week's podcast was we just went around the room a little bit. We have our members club live here on the call with us. And we were talking about audience attraction and what it looks like to actually connect with people that we want to be able to connect with. And that's going to be a big portion of our conversation here with Coach Tam as she walks us through some of the things that she's learned that really help attract an audience. And if you're developing a platform, that's one of the things that obviously is a big concern. And so maybe even before we get into some of your principles, Tam, it might be useful just to kind of hear a little bit about your journey, how you became involved in platform development, and even how the whole idea of building an audience became something that's on your radar.
You know, that's a really interesting question, John. And for me, it was a matter of necessity. So the way that I got into business is I went through my own personal transformation. I was at a crossroads with my health and received that ultimatum that many people get, that you need to make some changes because your health is at stake. So I went on a journey for this time to actually not only start changing my eating habits and start working out, but actually stick with it. So fast forward from that, I actually was successful. I was able to lose a significant amount of weight, 100 pounds. And whenever something like that happens, of course, people want to know how you did it. And so for me, it was a way to pay it forward and to help other people that had struggled the way that I had. So the vision that I had in my heart at that point was, wow, this is a way to really impact people's lives. So it started out with me working with people, friends and family, and then it grew and more people were asking me. And next thing I know, I was leading fitness classes, I was getting certifications. And so at that point, what I saw was, this is an opportunity for me to combine some things that are really, really important to me now, taking care of my health, my faith, being able to create an atmosphere where those things can come together. Because for me, that's where I get a lot of the strength that I need to do hard things, is relying on my faith. So it grew into an opportunity to meet with people at first on the weekends, and then we were doing classes throughout the week. And the next thing I know, I'm leading a fitness organization. But I started to run into some challenges when we hit the pandemic, as many business owners did, right? When you're used to running an operation that's in person and depends on people motivating each other and supporting each other in this close-knit environment, that was a big change and a big shock for us. So we switched to a platform, a virtual platform, in an effort to keep things going. And there were a lot of positive things about that. But in that space, it was also very difficult to be able to get people to buy into this virtual model, to be consistent in showing up, being able to get instructors to be a part of this after they're used to delivering classes in person. So the long story short, after holding on for as long as we could, April 2021, it became clear to me that our time in fitness was over. There were just too many things working against us to keep going. So I viewed it when something that could be perceived as failure happens, that it's a way of us being directed on another path. So the question became, where do I go from here? Now, interestingly enough, in my fitness business, we had, and I know that there are some life coaches that are listening to us.
Oh, yeah.
For some reason, the path that I was on just challenged me to go a little bit deeper with my clients. And so what I uncovered is that there were often things that were beyond just making healthy eating decisions or making a decision to work out that got in the way. So as I had these life coaching conversations with them in an effort to help them transform their lives, I also realized that they had all of these other dreams, like I wanted to write a book, or I wanted to go back to school, or I wanted to start a business. So as strange as it may sound, running a fitness operation, I had this small group of clients that I had worked with to actually chase those dreams, if you will, and publish their book. So here I am, my fitness business has imploded. It's done, it's over after 8 years of investing all this time. It's like, well, what do I do now? And I felt like the direction that I was being given was to literally, what I heard was to focus on what you have left. And I'm like, well, what do I have left? I mean, my business has just imploded. What is there that is left? And then I was reminded of the people that I had helped to publish their book, because they looked to me as someone that had done something that they, wanted to do, because I published a book in 2013, kind of talking about my journey of losing the weight, right? So I had helped this small group of people. And during the pandemic, I had done a couple of events to support authors. And so it was like, well, okay, I guess this is the thing that I had left. So I found myself, John, in the position that many people find themselves in, is I'm literally starting from ground zero. What do I do? I believe that there's a group that I am called to serve, but how do I serve them? And how do I get enough people to come together that it can actually turn into something meaningful? And so I found myself in a position where I had to create an audience for myself. And in the process of doing that, I developed some best practices and principles. And then lo and behold, I ultimately ended up teaching other people, the authors that we serve, how to build an audience. So it's funny how things evolve sometimes.
It is.
You look back and you're like, wow, that makes total sense why that happened. But I promised you in the moment, it didn't feel that way. But I'm happy that I'm here because I get to serve people in a different way. And that same type of impact, that global impact that I was looking for, I'm now getting a chance to work with people literally all across the globe. We have people in Germany, we have people in Switzerland, we have people on the continent of Africa. It's amazing that this mission that we have to take a message that we've been given and share it with others, it's one that so many people share, and I'm honored to be able to serve in this space.
And you're doing a great job with it too. And one of the things that I've noticed in the time that I've known you is you're very wise about how you're approaching some of these media channels and building community. So, I mean, the Christian Authors Network group has a couple thousand people in it now. Yeah. Now, you just started that from scratch just a couple years ago or less than that, and it's got a couple thousand people in it. I think last I checked, was it maybe somewhere, am I close when I say about 2,100 people?
Yeah, it's
about right?
2,100 people. So it's interesting. We actually keep track of it because we're constantly amazed by what has happened. So I share with you that I had done a few small events in 2020 for authors. So literally that group had 100, if I'm remembering correctly, it had 154 people in it from those those small events that we did. And here's what's fascinating on top of that, John. So maybe this will encourage someone. Because it wasn't my main business, I didn't even nurture that group. So once those events were over, I kind of went back to my fitness operation. So literally when I decided And when we decided as an organization, we're going to focus on this niche, this community, it had been dormant for months. We had not done anything. There was nothing. So yes, technically we had 154 people, but it wasn't like we were consistently showing up from that group. So in my mind, we were literally starting from ground zero, April 2021. And here we are, January 2023. And you're right, we've been able to attract 2,100 people. And it just blows my mind what we've been able to accomplish in that short time.
But I like what I'm seeing that you're doing. You're doing this by serving a variety of interests. You're helping people achieve the things that are of value to them, because I've seen people that are speakers that gravitate toward what you're doing, and that's their primary thing. They're trying to be speakers. And then I've seen people that are authors that are gravitating toward what you're doing. I see people that are podcasters, and I can't wait in a few minutes to segue our conversation into that. And just people in other forms of leadership that obviously value that. And I've been watching you build community and just help people in a variety of ways. And one of the things that you've made available online, and something that I've heard you talk about, are some principles that you've put together that you call your audience attraction formula. And if you wouldn't mind giving us an overview of what that looks like, because so live on the call with us right now, there are people that are starting their audiences from scratch. They're serving people, and they have a desire to serve people, but they're literally starting from ground zero. And then there are some that maybe have a few that they're trying to build from. And I'm curious if you could just give us, and those listening on the podcast as well, there are many people that are in that same kind of spot. And so what could you tell us about this audience attraction formula that you've noticed seems to be working well in your context and tends to be pretty translatable to other platforms as well?
Absolutely. This is a great question, John, because it's a common problem, and it's the one that I found myself in. How do I go from ground zero to being able to build a community? And it was, I'll be honest, there was a lot of trial and error in this process. It was not this instant download of the audience attraction formula, and I knew how to put it all together. But in taking this journey over the last year or so, some things have consistently worked. Some of the things that have allowed us to grow our organization consistently, when you take a step back and you say, okay, what are we seeing work? There are three things that I have seen work. The first one is being in a space of showing genuine compassion for those that you believe you're called to serve. And for me as a person of faith, one of the examples that I look to for that is Jesus Christ. When he was on earth, he served. And he spent time with those that he served. He wanted to understand their needs, their struggles, their challenges, their fears, their hopes, their dreams. He actually spent time with people. And so one of the things that we did in our community, literally, this is going to be mind blowing for some people, because it's like, what? You did that? But literally for the first 90 days, we didn't make an offer. We did not offer a product or service. Instead, what we did is we spent time getting to know that community, understanding what their true needs were. And once we did that, we were able to serve them so much better. Now, I'm not saying that everyone has to make that decision to not make an offer for X number of days, because that's really not what's important. But what I have found is important is that you have to really know your audience, not just know that you want to serve them or know how you want to serve them, but you need to really, really know them. And when you do, you're able to relate to them in a way that other people just aren't able to relate to them. So it's all going back to that concept of really building relationships. So that's the first thing, is being in a space where you can show genuine compassion because you actually understand them. You see them as a person, not just for what you can do for them. All right. So that's number one.
I like that. And I'll even just comment, one of the big words right now that I hear referenced a lot that you're demonstrating with that principle is just the idea of being authentic and not trying to be something that you're not. You're trying to be authentic. You're trying to genuinely serve people and come from a space of generosity, as opposed to those that seem like they do what they do only with what they have in view that they might get for doing it. And so I like that. So principle number one, show genuine compassion. All right. Principle number two.
Principle number 2 ties into a word that you just mentioned, and it is demonstrating authentic authority. Now, it's important. I could just say demonstrating authority, meaning you want to be a leader in your field, not that you're trying to dominate anyone or you're trying to pressure or manipulate them, because that's not something that I believe in. But I do believe that you have to believe that you have the solution to their problem and you have the answer to their questions. You need to believe in the solution that you have to offer them. But at the same time, you also have to be authentic. People have to really believe that you are who you say you are. We've talked about in many circles the importance of developing something we call know, like, and trust, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we want to be relatable to people, and we can only do that when we show up as our true selves. So one of the things that I've learned, my faith is very important to me. So that's a part of everything that I do. And that may not be the case for someone else, but it turns out that that's really attractive to my audience because it's something that they value too. So instead of trying to squash that or hide that, or I'm not going to show that side of myself, I actually step into it. I embrace it. And I believe that everyone that is listening to us right now, there are some things that you share, some things that you have in common with your audience. And if you would just step into those things and demonstrate them, it creates an emotional connection between you and your audience. And then when you can, on top of that, show that I actually do have something that can help you, and that you really, really believe that, then it's going to make an impact on them. So one of the things that we did initially, and it's still very important to what we do, is that we demonstrate that authentic authority by, again, leaning into our faith for our community, but by teaching. That's really the main principle that I use to attract people. Is I recognize that there is something that you're struggling with. It's something that I've been able to figure out. So let me show you how to do it. And teaching is one of the great ways to be able to help people to feel good about adding value to their lives, but at the same time, being able to demonstrate your expertise. So number 2 is authentic authority.
Demonstrating authentic authority. I like that. Yeah, and saying and allowing yourself to I like what you said earlier, this idea of allowing yourself to understand and believe that you do have the solution that can help somebody else. I think a lot of times one of the things that many of us, as we're in the midst of platform development, get hung up on a little bit is the fact that we think, oh, someone else could do this better than I can. Well, maybe they can, maybe they can't, but they're not the one showing up. You're the one showing up. You're the one that's actually carving out the time to actually serve somebody else. You're the one actually doing it. So maybe in theory, maybe you're right. Who knows? But here's the thing. Most of the time, we're actually incorrect in assuming that somebody else could do this better than we can. Oftentimes, you are the one that has the calling and the passion to do these very things, and you've been gifted to do it. And so why not do it? People need that help, and you're the one that's offering the solution. All right. Number 3 on your list is?
Number 3 on my list, John, is passionate storytelling. What I have noticed about people that are able to connect is that they often use stories to connect. And that's one of the things that we see when we teach too, right? Is often we are able to share an example of someone that's overcome this particular challenge or that's now facing it. And here's the steps that they need to take to get from point A to point B. And one of the things that I found is that telling stories is a great way to connect. So even when I'm teaching, I talk about the different clients that we've been able to serve or the type of person that we have been able to help. And then as other people are exposed to that, they're like, wait, that's me. I can identify with that situation. She's helped people like me. And so one of the things that I think that we can really leverage is stories as a way to build a bridge to talk about the products or the services, or for those of us that serve in a ministry/business capacity, it's a great segue is to use stories, or in the faith community, sometimes we talk about parables. These are things that we can use to create a connection with that audience and again go to a deeper level. That's what I believe is the secret, John, to attracting an audience, is you have to be able to offer them something that no one else can. And that's going to instantly differentiate you. And people are just naturally attracted to that. See, most people are okay being kind of average, just doing the bare minimum. When you exceed people's expectations, when you give at a level that most people don't, it immediately distinguishes you from everyone in your space. That's what
without a doubt. So the formula is this for those who are taking notes. Number one, show genuine compassion. Number two, demonstrate authentic authority. And number three, use passionate storytelling.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's fantastic. Even to reiterate with point three, I have noticed as someone who's been involved in public speaking for the past 26 years of my life serving in pastoral ministry, a lot of times I will purposely place story in the midst of principles that I'm speaking of, because I know that sometimes people want to be paying attention to principles, but it's when you drive something home with a story or an example that you actually seem to trigger the emotion and trigger the memory and help people to actually be able to latch on to something and feel something from what you're trying to communicate. So I completely agree with that. And if somebody's listening right now, or those of our members club that are live here on the call with us are listening, and they wanted to develop an action plan, something to really put this into practice. If they're trying to build their audience either from scratch or help their audience grow to the next level, what advice would you give someone as to what that action plan should actually look like?
Yeah. Here's what I would say in its simplest level, John, it is start with the audience first. Start with defining the audience that you want to serve. And that's one of the things that I find sometimes as I'm working with people, is that their audience is so broad. It's not very defined. Those of us that like to help tend to want to help everybody.
Right.
And what I have learned, what I have learned is when you try to serve everybody, what ends up happening is your message gets lost. Because remember, we're trying to create this emotional connection, and that's really hard to do when you're giving a very general call to action or a very general invitation. But when I can say that I serve Christian authors, coaches, and experts, that's a very specific group of people. So if you are a Christian author, when you hear me say that, you're like, oh, she serves me, right? So the more that we're able to actually define the audience, and sometimes that's a little bit of trial and error. For me, it's been a journey, but we need to make a decision and start going in that path of defining what audience we're going to serve. And then that sets us up to take that next step, which is to really study our audience. One of the mistakes, I'm a big proponent of being transparent with my mistakes. And one of the mistakes that I made initially in business is I went based on the idea that I had in my head of what people wanted and what people needed. And now that I've transitioned to really understanding the world of marketing, I've come to realize, listen, you actually need to do some research to find out what people really want and need. And really being able to understand what their pain points are is really, really important.
Oh, yeah.
And if we just invest the time before we start running off developing stuff, if we just invest the time to really take some time to do research, and sometimes it can be done. I know that word might be a little scary to some people, but I found that it can be done, believe it or not, really simply and inexpensively using a tool that we all have. It's so easy to get insights on your audience when you know where to look.
Yeah, that's wonderful and very useful. And it's a good starting point for all of us, but it's not only a good starting point, it's also something that even if you've been at this for a while, sometimes we stop focusing on the fundamentals of what we actually need to be focused on. And these are fundamental concepts that help build an audience no matter where you are in that process. Even if you have an audience that's already got some momentum, if you're trying to build an audience and you're trying to connect with more and more people, I think these are the type of things that are really worth keeping top of mind. And one of the things that you and I have talked about just in our personal conversations, but then also in other contexts as well, is how one of the biggest tools that's available to many of us right now is podcasting as an audience generation tool. And I wanted to finish up our conversation with just a discussion of podcasting and why you think that's such a valuable tool for anyone that's building an online platform.
John, we don't have enough time.
We don't have enough time. I'll tell you this, even before you give your answer, the biggest audience generator of all the things. So I've got blogs, and I love blogging. I've got books. I've got them out there. I speak publicly. I do a variety of things, but the tool that has helped me personally the most has been podcasting. And so when I hear people think about podcasting and talk about podcasting, I'm always curious to hear their insights, because I am already convinced that it's valuable. We wouldn't be recording this conversation if I wasn't convinced that podcasting was valuable. So what do you see in the world of podcasting, and why is it so high on your radar too?
Wow, it's so high on my radar, I will say selfishly, because it leverages things that are really important to me. So I don't know if anyone else is like this, but I love being able to make an impact literally. Now, I know that right now we're face to face, but in some instances, you can literally record a podcast with no makeup. You don't have to be dressed up. You don't have to do anything. All you need, and if you're John, you've got your amazing radio voice and you're good to go, right? So part of it, John, honestly, is just I love the way the platform works. But also I recognize that some people, and most people, when I say this, they don't believe me, but introverts like myself sometimes appreciate platforms that allow you to be able to serve without all of the expectations, right? There's a certain performance pressure, that's what I like to call it, that comes with doing live video. You know, you have to have your lighting right, you have to have this right, you have to have that right. But with podcasting, it's all about just an intimate medium that allows you to connect with a person. They can be anywhere, you can be anywhere. And what research shows is, even though that person is often multitasking, I'm that person, I'm listening to the podcast while I'm walking or I'm washing dishes or whatever. The research shows that for some reason with the podcasting platform, it actually makes them more engaged, not less. So if I can be with a person while they're walking around and doing all these other things, I just feel like it's an opportunity to be able to be a part of their lives more. And that's ultimately what I want, because that helps to build that intimate emotional connection. Not to mention the fact that the research says that people that listen to podcasts are people that have money to invest. They tend to be more affluent. They also have higher buying intent, because the thing about social media, as much as I love it, Facebook is my platform of choice. So if you're on Facebook and you want to connect, send me a friend request. I'd love to meet you. I love Facebook. But the thing about Facebook and all the other social media platforms is it's interruption marketing. The intention of being on there is to be social. So I really want to talk to my friends and my family. I don't necessarily want to hear about your product or service. But the great thing about podcasts is that people look for a podcast. They intentionally look for something that solves a problem that they have, or if they're looking for a storytelling or a crime. I know people that follow crime podcasts, right?
It's one of the most popular genres right now.
It's one of the most popular. So, but they're intentionally searching for it. They literally have to put something in to Apple Podcast or Amazon Music because they're looking for it. And that means that they have something that they want. And if you can get in front of if you can create the right space as a podcast host, and then if you can be a guest on the right podcast, in my mind, there's no other platform that allows you to get that targeted, to be able to get someone that has high buying intent, that is affluent, that is able to afford your products and service, and you can ride around in their pocket while they're walking. Like, it's amazing. To me, hands down, there's no better platform than podcasts.
It's one of my favorite opportunities to connect with people. I love how it works. You're speaking my language before when you said, you don't have to get all dressed up or all dolled up. I'll let you know. And I mean, I realize most people are probably listening, not watching, but Tam, just like you said, I am not wearing any makeup. So this is just all me right now.
Not today.
Those of you that are on video, I promise this is how I look all the time. So, but I'll tell you what, I was even thinking as you were talking there, just a few weeks ago, I got basically stranded in the Chicago Midway airport. I was in Midway, and I was stranded there. My flight got canceled. They couldn't get a pilot. Isn't that special? So I walked around that airport for hours listening to podcasts, and it helped me pass the time, and I'm listening to that. And I also completely agree and completely believe you when you say, even from a monetization standpoint, if a podcaster that I trust recommends something, I am absolutely more likely to at least consider it as an option. If they recommend a brand, I'll at least look into it. I have done that many, many times with podcast hosts that I've listened to, and even the advertising that I'm in the process of adding to some of my shows. I recognize that I want to be authentic even as I add that advertising. So I don't advertise anything that I don't feel comfortable actually using or recommending. And I think a lot of podcast hosts feel that way. You feel that bond with your audience. And so you want to carry through and not damage that integrity after you've built up that trust. And so I completely agree with your assessment.
Yeah.
Uh, Tam, real quick, before we finish up here, if somebody wants to follow up with you and learn more about all the different things that you're doing online and how they can plug into your ecosystem, what's the best way for them to do that?
Yeah, well, if you are all about audience attraction and podcasting, I want you to head to www.audienceattractionformula.com. If you follow that website, you'll be able to get a freebie that we've put together that walks through the different concepts that we've talked about today. You can also visit our website at 265point.com. And as I shared, my platform of choice is Facebook, so I would love to connect with you there. Listen, I pray that this has been helpful to all of you. And I want you to know that no matter where you are in this journey, that you can grow your platform. If we were able to take our little community from 150 people to 2,000 people in a year and a half, then it's possible for you too. So no matter where you are, stay encouraged. You can continue to grow your network.
I love it. Thank you so much. That was Tamara Jackson, who's with us this week and has become someone that I just have a lot of respect for and someone that I really admire. And I love the things that she's doing. But most importantly, I love her heart for serving the people that the Lord's put in her path to serve. It's very, very encouraging to see. And I'm so grateful that she was able to be a guest with us. And in just a moment, we're going to segue into a conversation that our members club is going to be able to have with Tamara. But if you're listening to us via the podcast, or if you're watching us via YouTube, I just want to encourage you to stop over to platformlaunchers.com. You'll be able to see the full 60-minute conversation that our members club is having with Tamara when you take our membership for a test drive. So you can take a 14-day free test drive of the membership. We'd love to invite you to do that. And again, if you want to check out the resource that Tamara just recommended, audienceattractionformula.com. Check it out. You'll be able to download an ebook and see so many helpful things that she has there. We're so grateful that she was willing to be a guest with us this week. But that's it for us this week. We look forward to catching up with you again very soon. And in the meantime, we wish you all the best success in building your online platform. Have a great week.